Welcome. How's it going? It's been a long time since we've done this show. Welcome to Coalesce. I am Jason, and with me I have Matt all the way in Virginia. Hello.
Hiya.
And it's been forever since we've done a show, so welcome back. It's good to be back. And as you can see, I have moved once again. So this is the third time, or the second or third time within a year and a half time frame, or something like that. So it's good to be back. Good to have the show back up again. Good to be working back on zombie popcorn stuff. So how are you, Matt?
I'm good. Quick side note.
Okay.
I do not see you. I see XSplit going live as simple.
Well, we'll fix that.
Just thought I'd let you know.
Awesome. Excellent. So tonight's show is going to kind of take on an extension from a show that we've pretty much all the shows that we've done. We're going to drill down into the topic of what does it mean to be an activist. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to kind of define that based on our personal beliefs and based on the lifestyle choices that we've made, and kind of dig down into that. So it's going to be a very exciting show, I guess. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah.
So it's good to be back. He's happy to be back. You can tell. Awesome. So let's kick this thing off, and let's define what it is for someone to be an activist. What does it mean to be an activist? I guess there's so many different levels of this word that you when somebody asks, I even put it out on Facebook before the show, is asking people is like, what do they think of when they think of the word activist? And individuals replied back. They actually listed individuals, activists, people who have done, in their eyes, great things, people who have advocated a cause, people who, are a part of an environmental organization, people who oppose unjust things in our world. So, I mean, I guess in a nutshell, that is what an activist is. And Matt, he's just writing stuff down. Go ahead.
I guess my question for you would just be, since you've lived the life of an activist, how did you start getting into activism to begin with?
I think it's such a strange question, and that's, I guess, one of the reasons why I wanted to have this topic is because I personally don't feel that individuals choose to be an activist. I don't think it's something that you wake up one morning and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to be an activist this morning. I mean, I think it's something that's inside of us. It's something that, that bubbles up naturally and organically when you experience something that moves you so passionately, whether it's, you see something and you know something needs to be done, and you take the steps to do it, to change it. So, like, for example, if you witness, the topic that we talk about on this show a lot, the sex trade and human trafficking. If you see issues like that, and you deep down it's wrong, and deep down you feel sad about it, and it hits you emotionally. I mean, it hits you emotionally because we're all activists. That to be active is to be an activist. To be an agent of change is an activist. So to address, when since I've lived the lifestyle of being an activist, when did I choose? I don't know when I chose. I mean, because I don't think it's something that I choose. It is something that, I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It's I don't see any other option. I don't see any other choice. I don't see any other answer. I mean, how could I look at, the people I care about? How could I walk in the streets of the world that I care about, knowing if I did nothing, that these injustices and these horrible things that we witness are continuing, and I'm allowing them to continue because I remain silent about it. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, by the way, pause real quick. I'm hearing a pretty bad echo on my end. Um, so I guess I have two questions. Um, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I still can't see you, by the way. Um, I guess one question I would I do want to know what your life looks like living as an activist, like the lifestyle of an activist, what that's looked like for you. But in terms of what you just said about uh, kind of not being able to not do anything because of how pressing the need is, um, I guess what is the basis for that concern or that care? Like, why should people care?
That's why should people care?
Yeah.
Well, pick a topic, I mean, I guess generically, why people should care, because they care about their loved ones, they care about their family, they care about, their brother, their sister, the mom, dad, wife, whatever. They care about the people around them, and that old statement, an injury to one is an injury to all, is so true, because we are interconnected on all different levels. We talked about it a lot on this show. We talk about it often on this show. It's like how we are interconnected, how that we can pinpoint it down to single issues if you want, but on the broad scale, it still affects all of us. I mean, when I say we can pin it down to single issues, it's like, for example, why should I care about the environment? Why should I care about pollution in the water? Why should I care about pollution, air pollution? Why should I care about, fracking or oil spills? Because at the end of the day, it may not affect you, but generations down the line, it will affect the ones you love. It will affect your generation, your offspring and your children's offspring. It will affect them, and it's, if you don't do anything about it, then I mean, I don't know how to go from there, because it's just something that, to me, it's just something that, and I think it's for everyone. I mean, because when you sit down and actually talk to people, and you bring these issues up to people, they react in a way that is positive. They react in a way that they say, "Look, we have to do something about this." And how they define what this is defined by them. I mean, because in the world of activism, there's so many different levels. There's people who, write letters, to their congressmen, or write op-eds, people who get out in the street and protest and hand out leaflets, and there's people who do direct action, and there's all different types of level. I mean, there's even people, people always say that, I don't want to tell people what to do, but what I don't think people understand is that what they do in their everyday life is telling people what to do. You could be the worst person in the world, and there would still be somebody out there that looked up to you. You would still inspire somebody. And by just living, we are telling people what to do. Because that's just, we're social beings. That's just the way it works. And on a more detailed level of that, it's just the choices that we make in this world tell corporations that it's okay to continue doing what they're doing. I mean, it's like, for example, I'm vegan. We've talked about this on the show before. The reason I'm vegan is because I don't want to give my money, and I don't want to support animal cruelty, but I don't want to give my money to anyone else to slaughter animals. So if if I cared, let's just take it out. Say I'm not a vegan. Say I consumed meat and was horribly moved and disturbed by what happens in U.S. factory farms. And I continue to give my money to the industry that something that I disagree with. Then I'm still telling them, I may be inside and having the internal struggle of telling myself, oh, I hate that these animals are being strung up upside down, fully conscious and having their throat cut open and while they're kicking and screaming. If I really, really hate that, and I still go down to Burger King, I still go to the grocery store, and I still go to wherever I purchase my meat and give them my money, I am telling them, no matter how much pain I feel inside about it, I am telling them that, hey, I support what you're doing. Continue to do it. So without even me saying a word to that industry, I am telling them with my dollar that it's okay to continue their practice.
So ultimately, you're founding selfless compassion on the basis of the interdependency of life and different organisms and everything. So, because we also that echoes back, by the way.
Sorry, I'm working on it.
So, because we do imitate each other, because we are interdependent on one another, that would be the basis for the importance of activism. So, so that's why it's better to be an activist rather than to be selfish and to not care, because it's antithetical to how life works. Is that kind of would that be kind of the rationale or the basis for living a life of living an activist life?
Well, again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's not that you are living anything different than what you would do naturally. You're just making sure your values are heard. You're making sure the things that you truly feel are important are being known. You're living by your values. You're living by your statements. I mean, it would be as for you as a Christian to know the Word of God and know that lifestyle, that for lack of a better phrase, know how to live a life of a Christian, and say, I have, for me to follow in the footsteps of Jesus, I need to live a life of compassion, and I need to live a life live a just life. And then you wake up and say, well, I know that that I should do this if I'm going to be a good Christian, but I'm not going to do it. You don't do that. You follow your values. You follow where your heart and your intuition and whatever spiritual guidance that you pull upon lead you. And so it's not. I mean, I guess it's not something that you willfully choose. What you willfully choose to do is not live a life as an activist. As you willfully choose to close your eyes to injustice. You willfully choose to turn your back on abuse. You willfully turn your back and close your eyes to the things that are happening in the world around you. Those are the things that you willfully do. You don't willfully choose to be a life of an activist. You to live a life as an activist, because the things that you know that are wrong deeply, that are destroying this earth, that destroying our planet, destroying our connection between each other, it's something that bubbles up naturally. I mean, that's, from my understanding, that's the foundation of all religions. That love and that compassion, because that's the easiest. It's harder to close your eyes and turn your back and allow injustice to happen. That makes sense?
Yeah. So, I guess a question for you would be, what does the life of an activist look like? So, in your life, I mean, focusing specifically on you, and again, everyone's an activist, but in terms of like your life, like for the causes you're a part of, like what does your life look like as an activist? So everything from the more flashy demonstration stuff to the simple choices you commit to every day. What does your life as an activist look like?
Rephrase that, because I don't. What is you're saying? What does my daily life look like? What?
Yeah, if I were to look at you, like what would the life of Jason Bayless tell me? Um, like what is your life kind of telling the world about what justice looks like?
Well, I don't know.
Uh,
I don't think I could. To answer the question, what does it look like for me for the things that I do? I don't think I could. I don't think I could. I personally can answer that question because it's not judged by me. It's judged by the impact that it has on others. And not saying that's why I do it, to have the impact on others, but that's the way it should be judged. You should. It's not. This self-reflection is not, oh, I did X, Y, and Z, so therefore I'm a good person because I'm an activist. No, it's I did X, Y, and Z because I saw that there was a need to do X, Y, and Z, and the byproduct of this was that it changed this policy. It changed this worldview of these individuals and groups. I guess a good example would be I posted, maybe it was a month ago, on my Facebook page, on my personal Facebook page, not Zombie Popcorn, because I was looking for a photo and I came up across a forum that was talking about me, and it was talking about me back when I worked at an animal rights organization, and they were saying that I was connected to terrorism and that I was a part of this group that the FBI considers the number one domestic terrorist group in the United States. And I thought it was funny, so I screen grabbed it, cropped it, and posted it on my Facebook because I just thought it was funny. What happened from there is I received a personal message on Facebook from the person who wrote that post. And let me see if I can pull it up here. And it was one of the most amazing experiences because they're like, well, first of all, I want to say I'm sorry. I'm the person who wrote this post. I mean, I'm pulling up the what he wrote me, so I can give him justice for what he said. And it is so good. This is what he wrote. He goes, Jason, I was the one that said that disgusting remark back on AP 4 years ago. I was young, immature, and not fully aware of what I was saying. I regret ever doing that now. After having talked to you in person before, I've changed my entire thinking. I don't think I would ever say that again. And again, I apologize for my ignorance. Please know that people can change. I know it's crazy that the originator of that post is on your friends list, but it's because I took the time to research and change my way of thinking and understanding. I hope we can laugh over this. My heart sank when I saw you post this. And I just wrote back and said, hey, man, thanks for reaching out and letting me know your story. I don't have any negative thoughts about this post because that is things like that. It's because things like that come with being active. No hard feelings at all. In fact, it made me smile and laugh, and that's why I shared the post to let other people in the world know that it's okay to laugh at yourself and the things people say. We can take this conversation, and then we just started talking about what I asked him about his personal life and stuff, and we've just been going back and forth talking about it. So we're even more than just Facebook friends now. So using that as an example, that was not planned to pull up. That was kind of weird. Using that as an example, if you live a life of compassion and the choices you make revolve around making sure you do put that forward, things organically grow out of that. Change organically grows out of that. Because you should never plan your attack, I guess you could say. Never plan. You can have, like Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. You can have a plan like that, but the way things change is organically through people by you being that example. And that's not necessarily going out and handing somebody a leaflet. Yes, change works that way, but it also is just being who you are and being true to your values. That work?
Cool. Yeah. I don't know if we want to, which question we want to address here first, but when it comes to the issue of activism, I guess that echoes back, by the way. So if I'm stumbling through my words, that's why. Uh, so you mentioned the article where you were called a domestic terrorist. So
I've been called that a lot. I think the thing that I just talked about was different from that photo that I posted yesterday. It's just
okay, got it. Nevertheless, there is this idea, and we kind of it was here in the show notes, and um, why do you think, or do you think, activism has a negative image?
Well, you can jump in on this conversation as well and add your input because Christians are also, before we get into the negative image, I want to talk about, I want to bring up the topic of what do you think, do Christians consider themselves activists? And if so, if not, should they?
Um, yeah, as far as do they consider themselves activists, if we're going to talk about, and these two camps don't really, they disconnect from each other because they both think they're missing the point. Um, and I think Christianity entails both. I mean, even people on the more soterian side have their own activists. I mean, they'll be the ones who typically go after issues like abortion and gay marriage and things like that, like things that they see as an affront to their personal morality. But I'm not sure. But in the process, they end up being annoying a-holes some of the time. Um, so I mean, it's a complex question to talk about Christian. I mean, there are definitely a lot of Christian activists. I'm just not sure if we're going to talk about activism as specifically affecting the social sphere. I think it might depend on which group you focus on. But I think every Christian should consider themselves an activist. Um, I think, if you look at the Sermon on the Mount, about being a city on a hill, the light of the world, um, giving to all those who ask. We talked about that one last time. There's supposed to be a lifestyle lived. Jesus was mainly known by the people in Israel for his works, not for his morality. And so, as Christians, I kind of think it should be the same for us. We should be known by our works, and the life that we live. So, I think every Christian should consider themselves an activist.
And that's just, you're saying they should become an activist or consider themselves activists just to follow their beliefs to however they see fit, or to, for lack of a better phrase, push the agenda of creating others to be Christian.
Well, I mean, at some
I mean
level,
that I don't mean that as harsh as it seemed to come out.
well, I mean, the goal is like, I mean, for Christians, the message is that, humanity was created to be the image. Humans were created to be the image bearers of God, so that whatever God looks like, that's what we're meant to represent. So within the person of Jesus, we see that idea of like, okay, whatever God looks like, Jesus looks like God. And so if we had any question about what justice looks like in public, Jesus is the answer to that. And so that's what we want to imitate, because we could definitely look at other examples and theories of morality. Like we could look at Aristotle and virtue ethics. We could look at some utilitarian ideas of justice. We could do all this, but for the Christian, it's a matter of like, if we had any question of what God thinks justice looks like, the person of Jesus exemplifies that. so within that we have Jesus going around doing good. We have Jesus talking about when was I naked, sick, in prison, and you visited me, clothed me, gave me shelter. Um, we have Jesus who, doesn't stand up violently to Rome, but sacrifices himself and empties himself. And um, so for us, but without compromising himself and without being bought by the system. Um, so being willing to carry out consistently who God has made us to be, even in the face of death, not dispensing death, but being the recipients of death when necessary. So, if justice looks like something for the Christian, Jesus is what justice looks like. So when we seek to, I mean, unfortunately, Christianity gets reduced to an aspect of, kind of a hell insurance, eternal security deposit, and the Christian message is way more than that. It's about restoring humankind to what we were meant to be, and we believe that Jesus resembles what we were meant to be. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, that totally does, because that kind of lays the groundwork of how we both approach, both camps, I guess, approach the issue, because as what I'm hearing you say is Christians yourself approach the issue of creating a just world or living a just life based on the image of Jesus, which is based on the image of God. And that's how you define what actions should be taken at whatever unjust moment. And then for myself and people who share my same approach on life is that when we see an unjust moment, we act upon it, and our reflection is not of Jesus or of God. Our reflection is in the eyes of the person affected by the individual affected by the oppression or the abuse, which I guess is in the same language we're talking about. We're just putting because we, in your worldview, we are the image of God. So what you see in my eyes is what you see in the image in God's eyes, or vice versa. Go ahead.
And it gives an element of importance, of even heightened importance to, why should I love my neighbor as myself? Yeah. It's one thing, like, I can love my neighbor, and and again, with the issue of justice, I'm not saying that people apart from Christ can't be just, that they can't be publicly just, and for people who want to live, good lives. I mean, everyone kind of. I mean, this is why we have things like ethical theory. What is just? We want to know. And so for the Christian finds their ultimate answer in Christ. Others might find it in virtue theory or in utilitarianism or some other ethical theory. And likewise, for the reason why the issue of suffering is important. In the case, let's talk humanitarian suffering. I mean, we can obviously talk animal suffering, some other things too. We can. But in the case of, fellow human suffering, like it just, it goes beyond simply the, hey, I do feel this way about seeing another human suffer. It takes it a little, it tries to take it further and say, and the reason why we feel that way, not just the fact that it's another human being suffering, we're interdependent, but it goes further and says, and God is the author of that interdependence. So it for the Christian at least, I don't know if, I don't know if saying this will ring true or maybe be taken the wrong way, but for the Christian, it adds even more value to it, and gives it the kind of the weight of eternity, I guess, would be a very poetic way of putting it.
Well, expand on that a little bit, because I can't. I have a hard time relating to that statement of how it adds value to it. I mean, I had you all the way up until that moment, and I can try to relate to what you're saying and try to instill my own ideas into it, but I don't think I'll. So help me clarify my brain on that.
Um, I wish I had a chalkboard, because I don't. I guess it's. Uh, I guess it's been. I guess it would. I'm trying to think if this was an existentialist who said this, or if it was an apologist, or if it was an apologist talking about what an existentialist said. But this idea that, like, in the world, you have the realm of nature and the realm of grace, grace the higher, nature the lower. So, um, if you take an existential view to a certain point, like, you may end up with nihilism at some juncture down the road. Maybe not. Not you don't have to necessarily end up in a nihilistic despair of the absurd or whatever. Um, but I guess for the Christian, the issue becomes, like, without grace the higher, and without the realm of the eternal, without God, does the world of nature and the physical order have any real inherent meaning, um, other than what we ourselves make of it? And I mean, we can all make a leap of faith of some kind, to whether it's an atheistic one or one of religiously inclined. Like, we can all kind of make an existential choice in life, but uh, in some ways, for the Christian, we kind of see that lack of grace the higher as being a slope towards nihilism. Because in the end, I mean, I've got a good, I mean, this kind of goes back to the issue of, like, chance versus, not fate, but um, versus God's will or God's presence. Like, if all is chance, then how can we say that the universe isn't absurd? And it's not that we can't make something pleasant for very pragmatic reasons, but those pragmatic reasons don't necessarily hold an inherent value above, say, a person's selfish choices, to make their life as pleasant at the expense of others as much as they can. If you add in grace the higher, then at that point, as I think Kierkegaard would say, there's a duty now to love. Because now there's a ground of being. There's a foundation to life that transcends just a random nihilism. I don't know if that makes sense or answers the question at all.
It makes sense, and it kind of answers the question, but also makes it doesn't land well with me, because I don't see it as I mean, I don't. It's to me, it seems like the element of being able to judge your surroundings and understand your surroundings. It rules out that possibility. I mean, because you can make a statement about the world based on what your experiences are around you. For example, since both of our philosophies is based on suffering, or our work for a just world is based on suffering. For me, I don't see when we talk about the image of God and the reflection of the eyes of the people that you help. But it's more based on, I know, I mean, both human and non-human. It's based on my observation. I know if I take a stick with a really sharp point and stick it in your rib, you're going to have the same reaction as if I would have if you took a sharp stick and poked it in my rib. I know how you would react because I relate to that, because that's how I would react. Taking that step forward, if I take the same sharp stick and go up to a dog and stick it in their ribs the same way as I stuck it in your rib, and I see the same reaction that the dog gave, that I would give, that you gave, I can draw that parallel that this caused that dog to suffer, even though we can't, we have no other tools to know if that dog actually felt that pain. Through that observation, you could be 100% sure that dog had a strong discomfort when you stuck him or her with that sharp stick. And after that life experience, you know that you don't want to stick anybody with a stick. You don't want to cause them pain because you don't want to be caused pain. And
that's a very deontologist argument.
Don't derail me.
Sorry, keep going.
That's all right. So what I'm saying is that going back to what you were saying about is the universe, what did you say, the universe is the universe not crazy? Absurd, yes. You can still say that the universe is absurd, and I accept that the universe is absurd, but there are things that we know that happen, and that we know the things that we can do to control situations that doesn't cause suffering. And we know that we shouldn't buy chocolate from the Ivory Coast. Why? Because children are suffering. We know, there's all of these different elements in our lives. There's different elements in our daily life. We don't even have to talk about outside of the country. There's stuff that we can do as we walk to work, as we're going to the bus, or, that we can do that will improve the lives of others. And that's based on your observations in the world, not based on any spiritual, philosophy or anything. It's just based on your observations.
And I want to just repeat too that I don't think living a just life requires one to be a religious person, because I think that these things are ingrained in us, that we all have a sense of them.
Yeah.
I would argue that God wants to bring that in each human being to its fullest expression. And I think that's part of what Jesus does, is he's meant to provide that fullest expression. In face of nihilism, I guess my argument, the question always becomes one of why should we really care in the face of the absurd, other than hoping that society doesn't degrade, and maybe if we treat others right, they won't, turn on us, and they'll remember, and if everyone lives this way, it'll kind of hold the it'll hold the social contract together, which I think is pragmatically true. But I think there's something about I think, and I don't usually quote, as Bob would call him, Pope Palpatine. He did talk. And I can't find this book anymore, and I keep trying to find it. He describes the life of faith as floating on a sea or an ocean on a beam of wood. Afraid to hold on for fear that you're just going to stay there and die, but afraid to let go and sink into the nihilistic sea below you. And it's kind of like you have people living in the nihilistic sea, or maybe floating on this desperate piece of driftwood on top of the sea, where it seems like you're not connected to anything, but at least you're not in the sea. I almost feel like, I forgot where I was going with this in part, but I guess if we are in the sea of nihilism, I get the pragmatic and biological evolutionary reasons to be compassionate, but in the end, there's really no ultimate reason why I should be a good man, why anyone should be a good person. And I guess, and this makes it sound shrewdly pragmatic, and I mean, I kind of see that call for justice as a sign of God's presence in humanity in the world, or as a sign of His creation of humanity, and as a sign of the image of God. But there's also something about God where if He is my rock, I can't be bought. Like if He is the foundation of life, if He's my grounded being, I know I can't be bought. Um, or I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry that I'm living in the wrong part of the nihilistic ocean. Um, and I think in some ways, I almost there's the creation image in Genesis where God breathes into Adam's nostrils, and it's kind of like this element of like, and I think this is true of how God works in the human world. Like He takes what's there and He breathes into it and enhances it. And I guess that's what I kind of see the interplay between grace and nature, and between God and justice. Like, I guess I see an enhancement of it. Um, and I guess that's part of what I mean by the strength of eternity. Don't know if that don't know if that made things more clear or muddled.
No, it brought up a question that that in everything you've said, there's an underlying current happening, and that is, and then what I'm taking away from it is that without, in your worldview, I'm not saying this is across the board for everyone. It's just what I've taken from what you said. But without the belief in God, that life is meaningless. Because you, and the reason I grabbed this from what you're saying is because you keep referring back to nihilism, and that there's like this fear of falling into nihilism, and the way that you fall into into that is by losing your faith or your belief in God. And why is there this fear? Why? I mean, why do I guess I don't even want to address why is there this fear? Why do you believe that is the only? It's black and white in that area where you either have faith or life is meaningless.
Well, I want to go back to my original postulation of the idea of grace the higher, nature the lower, and the question of without the intention of grace in the world, without the interplay of grace and nature, and God having an intent for humanity, or there being some higher order of some kind guiding humanity, is there any real place for humanity in the universe as anything other than an accident? And if it is just an accident, and there's no inherent meaning, part of the existentialist dilemma is why care? I don't have a fear of I wouldn't say I have a fear of nihilism. I mean, some of this is an ethical question too. I mean, this goes back to an issue of ethics. Like, what is the foundation of ethics? Why should we be moral? And so I think it's an important question. And if not God, if not the Christian God, then some sort of metaphysical something other than the brute facts of existence. Why really be moral? Why give oneself to a purpose that has no inherent meaning, but only a contingent meaning?
Well, let's back up real quick. Let's define why give yourself a purpose that has no meaning. Let's dig into that. Because when you say that, and you may not mean this, or you may, when you say that coming from a person of faith, I guess coming from anybody, but in this sense, it's coming from you, so it's coming from a person of faith. So when you say that, I can't put words to it. It just doesn't land right. So. I mean,
I want to clarify too what I mean by inherent meaning. In other words, if and you might already know, I just want to make sure that I'm being clear.
the,
If the universe is accidental, there's no inherent meaning to life. Like inherent, like there's no teleology, there's no ultimate purpose, and so whatever purpose is made is created by each individual, um, which which is fine. I guess the only issue becomes like there's no real um,
if you say there's no reward, I'm going to be very upset.
no. I'm not worried about the reward. Again, like whatever the reward language of scripture and of Christianity is, like ultimately, I don't think it's about the reward. I think it's about um, making humanity what they're supposed to be and making the world what it's supposed to be.
But let's play it out to the part where, let's say it is up to each individual. Say there is no inherent, there's nothing there. Life is 100% meaningless until we did define that. Let's play that out. That's even more important in my eyes why we should live a just life, because if it is up to us to make sure that everybody has the ability to achieve their ultimate goal, to achieve the full potential of what they can possibly create, then it is up to us as a society and as an individual to make sure that our neighbor, that our family, that ourselves can obtain their full whatever it is that they want to become. And when we sit silently, and that's the only reason that the things that are happening today that are unjust is happening is because we sat silent as they began and didn't do anything to stop it, or didn't have the numbers behind it to stop it. But if we sit silent and allow these things to happen, it becomes part of what we consider human nature, which is not part of our human nature. We're just conditioned because we're creatures of condition. We're conditioned to believe that it is human nature. So capitalism is the only functional thing that helps everyone, which we know is not true, but everybody believes it is. War, making profit, exploiting each other, keeping slaves. I mean, all night tonight on MSNBC, they're talking about slave traffic and sex trafficking here in the United States, based here in San Francisco. And the reason it's continuing to happen is because the masses are silent. If we truly care about this, then we get together. We look out for each other. We go back to that purpose is defined by the individuals. The individuals make up communities. The communities make up, geographical locations, tribes, whatever you want to call them. And we have the best interest of each other, to achieve the fullest. And we got to stand up to what we allowed to continue to happen. So without God, there's a reason for us. And I'm not trying to make an atheist statement or
No.
anything like that, but I'm just saying, but without God, there is reason and purpose for us to want to live a just life.
But no reason. I want to say no reason why we all. I mean, I think all those things are good, but ultimately, there's no real reason why there's no real reason why we should.
Yes, there is. Our lives depend on it.
But for the person who thinks that they can get the edge, get the most power, and climb the ladder, like other than the pragmatic holding together of the social contract.
But those people only exist because we create an environment where we allow it to happen. We talked about it in times on past shows. The reason there is theft and drugs and all high crime is not because these people want to live a life of crime and do drugs and be addicted, and it's because we've created a society. We've fallen down on our job as stewards of this earth. We've fallen down as building communities of taking these people in and making sure that they can reach their fullest potential. We replaced it with all the negative things that forces them into this lifestyle.
Yes,
Sorry.
but I think even someone who's comfortable, um, I think that assumes that the person who has enough won't be greedy for more. Um, and I think even if they weren't conditioned, I think there's something within the heart of humanity that says, no, no, I do want more. I don't think it's just conditioning that causes that to happen to people.
No, there's need. I mean, you're implying that that with this utopia that I'm speaking of, which is not utopia, but with this ideology, that there won't be motivation, and that people won't want to create, and people don't want to do whatever we see that is necessary. Like, for example, if we lived in this world where we were all activists and took care of each other, there would be no need for me to buy a mixing board and cameras so we could broadcast this show, which is not true. The desire to do things exist. It's the momentum and the meaning and the end goal is what is conditioned in our society. It's what gets distorted or perverted, or because instead of us wanting, for example, like with the show, so like instead of me wanting to get this stuff so I could broadcast and just talk about stuff and, build a community between us and just have fun talking, having good conversations. That's my only purpose, because it brings me joy. I could easily go, you know what? I'm going to start investing more time in this so I can make a lot of money and start charging people, start doing all this stuff so I can build this empire. If that's what I was driven to do. I mean, that's part of the condition, because that's part of the condition is like you're not successful unless you have, a lot of stuff, unless you have a lot of material items, big house, big cars, big bank account, all this. And with a society that looks out for each other, we would understand, and we're slowly coming around as a society. We would understand that our choices that we make today are affecting people we never met. I mean, I work for an organization now that is working to help indigenous people in the Amazon rainforest regain their culture. Not regain, but keep their culture, because there's big U.S. corporations, or not just U.S., but huge corporations coming in trying to drill in their land and destroy their livelihoods. And what most people don't realize is that the products that we buy, the gas that we put in our car, and all that elements that we in our daily lives are destroying indigenous people in a part of the world that we will never see. And if we just take that global thought and apply it to what I was saying earlier, then you know what you were saying. I just went off on a rant. Go.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, no, I want to. Again, I want to make clear that what I'm not saying is that, again, non-religious people can't be just. I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying that that it's just a practical, well, because God will hate me. Like it's not that. Like I see it as an inherent purpose in the world. I mean, because I believe God is real. And if God's real, then it makes sense to say, okay, like if there is a God, has he spoken? How shall I then live? Because if he's real, it's important. um, and God, created reason. I doubt he'll violate reason. So what is he doing in the world? How can I get involved in it? Like, how can I do what I was made to do? Like I see human beings as having a purpose and a teleology that's given. And if there isn't that givenness to our sense of justice, it's not that justice isn't good. Um, it's just that I think it lacks an inherent metaphysical value. Like it's just, um, it just seems, it just seems as arbitrary as anything else in the universe. And because I don't see the universe as arbitrary, um, that plays into that as well.
Gotcha.
So
I don't know. I mean, I don't know where we should go from that. I guess it totally makes sense. I mean, it's just in my eyes, and not to undermine or lessen your belief. What I'm just saying, I think we are saying the same thing. It's just our approach is, the foundation is just slightly different.
yeah,
I mean,
no, I agree. Like, and I appreciate I definitely appreciate the passion of like, all this stuff's happening in the world, and what the hell are we doing about? No, I mean, I definitely appreciate the passion, and I mean, coming from where I come from, I would say that there's something of the heart of God in that. Um, and I think God is often pissed and heartbroken at when he sees it all. Um, so, and I'm not going to get into the question of, well, why doesn't he do anything? I mean, that no, no, no.
I wasn't going to say that because my answer would be he's telling us to do it. Get off your ass.
Actually, that would probably be close to my answer too. Um, and I mean, there's the whole thing of delegated authority. And again, God makes a garden, puts his icons in it. We're those icons. We're supposed to tend the garden, represent God to that garden, the garden of the earth, and be like, hey, you know what God looks like? Not like a human trafficker.
Yeah.
Surprise. Um, I guess one of the issues we can touch on real quick is the issue of what a just life looks like.
Okay. You start. I
Let's
started the other ones.
Okay. I believe the question we've written down: what does it mean to live a just life, as a Christian, as a non-Christian? Um, I guess as a Christian, there kind of, I mean, there are two schools of thought about justice in general. There's, and not just these two, but there are two that stand out primarily in my mind at the moment: retributive justice, and restorative justice. So with justice that seeks retribution, you're looking for an eye for an eye. Um, versus restorative justice, you're seeking the wholeness of the victim and and I believe also the person who's committed the crime as well, or trying to restore the offender as well. And I think for the Christian, I don't think our goal is to seek retribution. I think our goal is to we've talked to be nonviolent, to absorb violence, but also um, to make the victim whole and to restore the offender as much as they're willing to be. Not to say that government doesn't play a role and the state doesn't play a role in um, incarceration and all those things, but for the Christian specifically, what justice looks like um, is making wholeness and setting everything to rights. So for the victim, wholeness; for the offender, um, forgiveness, repentance, um, a change, a turning of their being. Like in the end, we're seeking reconciliation between parties that are at odds with each other, between the oppressed and the oppressor. Um, repentance for the one, forgiveness from the other one. Um, and that's our goal, to model that. And for the Christian, we model it by not seeking retribution, but we seek it by, in ourselves, absorbing violence and never giving it. And by forgiving, like we're meant to model that sense of justice. Um, but I would say there's also an element of speaking up for the poor and the oppressed as well. non-violently, but but yeah, still speaking up for them.
Awesome. And I guess how I define a just life. I mean, I guess I've pretty much defined that earlier with it's not it's I mean to me it's not about I mean I like my foundation it's not really about solving all the world's problems. It's not about solving everything. It's just about doing what you can every day. You can do every day in your everyday life. And sometimes, that for people like me, that's going outside of my daily life and going to areas that I would normally not put myself into, just so one I can experience, one I can influence, and one that I can gain more knowledge to change whatever that injustice is. And then the other part of it is just making sure every day what we do here, what I do on my way to work, what I do at work, what I do at home, what I eat, how I treat people, how I talk to people. I know we go back and forth, and we have our fun times, and sometimes it gets heated, but there's never any loss of respect. I mean, I think that's the integrity and the respect is the core to a just life. It's having the respect for whoever. I guess it's kind of what you were saying. Is like for a Christian, it's to be the person in the middle of an oppressive situation and helping the oppressed, as well as assisting the oppressor to become no longer the oppressor.
There's a story, and I don't know if it's apocryphal. It might be about the ending of the gladiator games in Rome, and I guess there was a Christian bishop who was just horrified by the violence of the games. So he jumps into the arena and tries to get everyone to stop, and he gets slaughtered, like brutally slaughtered, and it horrifies everyone so much watching him get slaughtered that the games stop.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like I don't know if it's based on if it's a legend based on some event or something, but like that idea though, I think kind of captures it well.
Well, I think it does, and I totally agree with you. I think that is the glorification and the beautification of what people think of activists, as long as they don't have the negative outlook, which we haven't talked about yet. But I think people who have a positive outlook on what it is to be an activist think of people like that. They think of Gandhi. They think of Mother Teresa. They think of King. They think of people who have done great works and who've put their lives on the line, stood in front of tanks, barricaded themselves to trees, barricaded themselves to capital, of destruction, logging mines, coal mines, whatever. People putting themselves in danger to make their voices heard. And yes, we should look up to those people because they do amazing things. They're very strong people. But that necessarily doesn't mean that does not define what it is to be an activist. I mean, that's the, for lack of a better phrase, that's the Hollywood version of it. That's the pretty. That's the stuff that you look at and your tears are to your eye and you're like, I'm inspired and I want to do something. That we need those people, but more importantly, we need people who don't do that. but live those values in their daily lives.
Well, I was speaking of the negative view of activism. That's probably falls under the negative view. Like, what are a couple of negative views of activism? Probably the person who gets really excited about a cause and then it just they get tired of it. It's a fad.
Yeah.
Fad activism, activism where people haven't really studied the issues well enough.
Well, and I think. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish.
I was going to make an allusion to Coney.
No.
But did you see that? Another negative view. Did you see that? I posted something that said people who line up outside of a store to get the newest product are good consumers.
Yes.
People who line up and protest some type of injustice are dirty commie hippies.
Tree hugging hippies. Yeah.
Yeah. Terrorists, anarchists who need to be put down.
Yeah. I'm going to pull out I'm going to start posting all of the times I've been called terrorist in the news on my Facebook. I was called a tofu terrorist in one of them.
Lamest kind of terrorist ever.
I'm just like, I'm squishy.
So, did you see there was something about the NSA? Excuse me.
I would say bless you, but you already have been your Christian.
And we're back. Well, yeah, there's that Dane Cook joke. I told this guy, God bless you, and he's like, I'm an atheist. It's like, well, bless you is simpler than, hey, when you die, nothing happens.
You should place it there, anyway.
So the NSA is starting to try to find dirt on different activist groups.
Oh, yes. They're
usage and conversations with women and whatever. Mainly terrorists, mainly Muslim activist groups.
Yeah.
But it's not too hard to see a slippery slope on this one.
No. Okay, let's. I don't think we. In case you haven't been following what happened, is Snowden released reports that said that there's a possibility that NSA will start using against Muslim activists who they leaders who they targeted within this document, that they were going to start exposing their web browsing history and their porn addiction online, and expose that to discredit them as leaders and as individuals. And I totally agree with Matt. I see this being used on a lot of different groups and individuals, but I don't know how effective it would be, unless you're a anti-porn or Christian group. Then I could see that really harming. But outside of that, I don't.
It makes me want to get out in front of it and be like, admit everything I've ever done. Like, all right, in my 15 years of internet usage, here's what's happened.
But I just don't think it. I don't think the backlash on if they went domestically with it, I don't think the backlash would be as heavy as they would like for it to. With Muslim groups, and it might be different, because there's that spiritual element to it. But I don't know. But that's not the topic of our show.
Yeah. No.
So what were we saying? Just Life. We're done with that?
Well, Just Life, negative views of activists.
Oh, negative views, yes. Yeah, I mean, so I guess in my experience, the question that I'm posing for this is, why does activism have such a negative image? And I don't mean a negative image, and I guess I do mean it in a way, but posing this question, I don't mean it as a negative image as, they're, violent or whatever negative. But why are people afraid to become active? How come when you say you need to get active, that deep in your heart, this is wrong, you need to do something and get active with it? why is there so much resistance from individuals to do it? Is it because they feel they don't have enough time in their daily life and their work schedule and their family to actually take up a cause? Or is it something bigger than that? I mean, do you experience stuff like that? I mean, like, really, Christian groups are nothing but activist groups in my eyes. They have their agenda, they have their agenda. They have their mechanisms that they do to try to spread their message, spread their whatever it is. But the difference is I don't know if somebody is ever answered when you're like, why don't you become Christian, or however it's phrased, if they go, I'm really busy and I don't have time to do that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they do. But why do you think activism has such a negative image?
I was having a conversation with someone kind of dear to me. I've had it a few times, and we talk about the issue of like poverty relief. And in a very cynical way, this person says two things. They point out that Jesus said, "You'll always have the poor with you."
Oh yeah, we talked about this. Yeah.
Which, I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, talk about a terribly misused passage, considering the context and everything else. It's not an ontological statement of the poor. Like, he's just saying, hey, you can help the poor anytime you want, but like, I'm Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, and there's the whole context, but there's that, and then there's just a cynicism. Like, I was talking to someone and they were like, I've been hearing about helping Africa all my life and nothing's changed. It's still terrible. And so I don't know if it's the enormity of the task. I don't know if like you just have people who might have been passionate about it at one point and then they just get burned out because it was a fad, and maybe people don't do stuff for the long haul in our culture.
I think they do, but
do you?
I mean, I have.
I mean, yeah. But like,
I have fake posters on the wall.
Yes. I don't know. It just seems like our culture is just, we keep stuff new and fresh. I mean, we're very consumerist. So even like when we...
But you say we, you should really say residents of the United States, because activists in other countries...
But yes. But people in the United States, like the culture is very much geared towards consumerism. So even, I mean, it's almost like in some ways, sometimes activism just becomes like the helper's high becomes just another item to consume.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah.
And honestly, as a Christian, like I look at other Christians or people who kind of tried the Christian thing and then like at some level, like there will be blood in this. There's a passage in Hebrews. It's like, Christ died. Have you drawn blood yet? No, you're fine. I mean, it's just kind of like at some level, even with, I mean, because Christian culture in the U.S., I mean, it's still just as consumeristic as the culture itself. Like we don't stay in relationships and friendships with people where they really hurt. Sometimes, we always move on to the newer, better job so we can get more and more perishable stuff. We disagree with some friends. They no longer make us feel good, so we make new friends. We don't know how to. I mean, with basic things like work and friends, we don't know how to stick it out until there's blood. So why would we do that with something as hard and abstract as a human trafficking victim overseas whose name we'll never know?
Or a human trafficking victim that's here in San Francisco.
Or in San Francisco. Actually, there's a map. I forget who released it recently, but it was like some of the Midwestern states were okay, but yeah, like California,
and Virginia.
the East Coast. Yeah, Virginia's terrible. I mean, Virginia is one of the dirty dozen. So, Um, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to get people to really sacrifice for something for the long haul.
But I
'Cause-
think, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
oh, I'm just was gonna just repeat that point. It's hard to get people to really commit for the long term.
And I think it goes back to that element that we were talking about earlier in this program, is of that being conditioned. I mean, because of another reason why capitalism doesn't work, because we are constantly teaching ourselves and constantly teaching on top of that, and teaching on top of that, and layers and layers and layers of that. The only way we can survive, the only way that we can live a happy life, the only way that we will be able to provide for our families and provide for our loved ones and have the things that the TV and all the advertisements say that we need, is to continue to work harder, get paid more. And it just becomes this vicious cycle: buy more, work harder, buy more, work harder. And talking about, when we're going back to the meaningless, doing things that have no meaning, that have no end, that have no purpose at the end. I don't know what's worse, of not believing in a God or a religion and working for a just life, or not believing in a God or religion or anything spiritual and not working for a just life, but doing things that are truly meaningless.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I want to go back to that because I was actually thinking about this. Like, I want to clarify a point I made earlier. I mean, to do something meaningful for contingent reasons and to do something meaningful for inherent reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, inherency implies a certain metaphysical grounding to being, which for materialists and a naturalistic worldview, there's no necessarily metaphysical inherency to things. There's just sort of a physical contingency to things, which even within that world, you still have to survive, and you still have certain emotions and certain biological drives and evolutionary developments that cause us to be good to one another. While I think the issue of inherency, of the inherent and the contingent, are important, I mean, ultimately, you're right. Like, whether you're doing something meaningful for contingent or inherent reasons, for natural or metaphysical reasons, it's still better than doing something meaningless for terrible reasons. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Well,
so,
and the thing is, and the reason they're terrible is not because it would be a different story if capitalism existed and our goal as a culture and as individuals is to just keep consuming and consuming and consuming and bringing in all this stuff. That is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If there wasn't the additional element, that the price for those elements that we don't see, like we mentioned before in the show, in this episode and previous episode, there is a price to all of this consumerism and all of this capitalism, and it's the poor people. The poor people are paying the price for it. The poor people in other countries, the poor people in who the indigenous people of this land are paying the price for this. They're getting all of our waste. They're getting all of our pollution. They're getting all the things that we dispose of when we're done with it, and it's killing them. So if you took out that element, and that stuff didn't exist, and if we had it like clean production and everything and no pollution and all that, then living a life where you just consume and consume wouldn't be so bad. I just wanted to make that clarification. The reason it's bad is because it's causing harm and death and not allowing people to achieve their full potential because we want material things.
and then the issue of consuming things, if it's not causing injustice, becomes the issue of an issue of morality and not justice, which is not the topic of this show.
But wouldn't it be better if that lifestyle was, if the shift was morality versus instead of injustice? Wouldn't you rather have that conversation than the reality of what we have now?
Oh yeah.
You're like, no. So if we can get there, I'll be happy to have a show on that.
Good.
I'm not sure how long we've been going on this show, but I'm sure it's been.
Yeah, I think we've hit that moment.
We did it. I'm rearranging the posters on my wall.
Has this felt coherent to you?
Yeah, I think I think it got off to a bumpy start. Because I didn't know.
I still can't see you, by the way.
I know. I didn't quit working on it because I wanted to get in the conversation. Yeah, it started off really bumpy, and I wasn't liking where it goes. But I think it ended up nicely. So let me wrap up this show, and then we'll talk offline. Hold on. So thank you for listening to episode number 8 of Coalesce. We're back. I don't know when we're going to do another show again. Sorry. Things happen. But we're here. So thanks. Definitely check us out on zombiepopcorn.com. Check us out on facebook.com/zombiepopcorn. And, G+, all that. Send us your comments, call us, all that fun stuff. It's all on zombiepopcorn.com. So check it out. Thank you for listening. Let us know what you think. Tell us. All right. Bye.